Khabib was doing an interview and he made his case for why he is the pound for pound great. And there was a comparison to John Jones. And of course, Khabib making the point of, I did all of this, I never got beat, and I didn't dope. Okay. Stating the obvious, there's nothing wrong with that. I wouldn't even call that a low blow. Khabib is the most dominant. I can prove that. That's not my opinion. I can prove to you that Khabib is the most dominant. I think that is a wonderful compliment to give a guy. You were the best fighter of all time. Hard to prove. Big compliment, hard to prove. The dominance isn't hard. There is nobody in fighting history. This never gets said about Khabib unless I'm the one saying it. And I don't know why. Either people don't realize this, or possibly they don't see that this is a really big deal and I'm all alone by myself, but I find that I'm the only one saying it. Guys, Khabib has more 10-8 rounds in his career than anybody in the history of unarmed combat. I'm including boxing. What an incredible statement. Then, okay, who's the greatest of all time? Different eras represent different things, and it's very rare that you'll have an argument going on about guys who are in the same era. It happens. It happens. I'm saying it's very rare. It's going to be LeBron and Jordan. You'll take these different eras, and then you're never going to be able to win the argument because you're going to have people with nostalgia that are just locked on their era. No problem. This is just some of the psychology behind it. To be the most dominant fighter of all time, and look what Khabib has going. 155 pounds at the time he did it was the hardest weight class, the absolute deepest weight class in the industry. It was also the deepest and most difficult weight class in the history of the industry. So if you're champion of that weight class, aren't you just automatically the greatest of all time? If you then add in the factor that nobody even won a round against him, and before any of you think you have to correct me, yes, I'm well aware that Conor McGregor won round 3. I got it. That was official, but nobody else could win rounds. And then in addition to the 10-8 rounds and the absolute dominance, now you have guys that not only can't win a fight, they can't win rounds. They're not winning positions. They're not winning a sequence with Khabib. So doesn't that, which none of which I just said could be disputed or is being disputed, does that by default make him the best of all time? No. No, the argument still exists. You don't get it for any goddamn reason. That's why it's so ridiculous to engage in these arguments. It's the different integers as to why Batman could beat Superman, and it will never go away. But no, everything that I just said and every box that Khabib checked, no. Now, it isn't between Khabib and John. That's also an interesting part of the argument that always makes me wonder, how'd we get here? How did it get down to beat Khabib against John? And John is a once-in-a-lifetime, not just was. John is a once-in-a-lifetime talent. It is remarkable how dynamic he was. It was remarkable his ability to grow. I'm not convinced that John's most dangerous aspect isn't his kickboxing. This is a national champion wrestler, by the way, who's never lost a submission match, by the way. I'm not convinced he's not even better on his feet. I couldn't possibly give enough compliments to what John has gone out there and done. He went out there and he did it dirty. So what do you do in that regard? Do you attempt to have the conversation to remove the veil that, yes, he did it dirty, but he wouldn't have had to have. Even if he were clean, it would have been enough. That argument's not going to hold up. Even if it's true, you would look like a fool defending somebody, right? You would just look like a fool. And since the whole thing is nothing more than an argument, there's no competitive architecture. There's no way to actually prove it. It's a popular opinion vote. And so once we understand, and that's my only point by bringing in John and the Peds, my only point is if we acknowledge it's an argument and no one's going to be able to argue or even attempt to argue around the cheating, it doesn't hold up. So how did we even get to Khabib versus John in the first place? That one's a little bit weird. Why is Demetrius not put right in this conversation? I'll just tell you, as a guy who changed weight classes, my freshman year in high school, I was 115 pounds. My senior year, I was 185 pounds. Covered the spread all in between. I just know different weight classes. Fought at 185, 205, heavyweight. I know different weight classes, and I'll just tell you, the whole reason why I was 115 pounds as a freshman and I was trying to get to 185 is I knew the secret, which is the bigger they are, the more they suck. They're worse. They aren't better as you go up. They're looked at as better. They're perceived as better. The perennial weight class is the heavyweight class. Been that way from the beginning of time, whether it was Hulk Hogan holding the belt or Muhammad Ali. It's always the big guys, but they're worse. We had a wrestler, Alexander Karelin, and this guy was special. I would never take any accolade away from Alexander Karelin. I hope I get to meet him and shake his hand someday. I'm a big fan. He won countless championships in a row at heavyweight. So he stole all of the magazines. He stole all of the headlines. He was this amazing phenom. But the reality was, for his skills, there was maybe one other guy that he had to contend with. At 145 pounds or at 163 pounds, there was 10 Karelins at all times. It was the reason the 45-pounders or the 63-pounders, I'm giving you wrestling weight classes, couldn't do 10 and 11 in a row. It was too damn good. It was too hard. It was iron on top of iron. It's the reason that you're seeing musical chairs being played with those weight classes right now. Charles Oliveira is an excellent fighter. Charles Oliveira is not going to be the champion in 2 years. Not if he stays consistent and gets his 3 fights a year, and he's not winning 6 in a row. That isn't a knock on Charles. It's a compliment to that division. And the fact that Khabib was in that division with these same guys, never lost a fight, didn't even lose rounds, was dominant 10-8 rounds where it was hard to watch. I can't tell you how many Khabib fights I watched. The ref helped the guy out, get him out of there. Is one of these things that I'm just bringing to your attention because the debate starts to be pretty interesting. And Khabib does have one thing against him. It's only one. It's only one. But it's still against him, and it's going to grow over time. Now that we're still in the Khabib era and we've all seen him fight, we all miss him and want to see him fight again, even though we're not going to get to. Over time, we're going to forget that. We're going to forget how we feel right now. We're going to see new talent in there. So we're now left with paper. And this even happens now. I mean, right, the Jordan versus LeBron. You're talking about Jordan had 6 rings and LeBron had none at one point, but this was the argument. And you could see, and many people say, no, LeBron's better. I don't give a damn if he has the rings or not. He's going to get them, and he's better now. Just a debate. But a hard one to win when you got 6-0. I'm going back a while. Khabib never changed weight classes. And if you were within an area, if this is 20 years ago and nobody was changing weight classes and they weren't even allowed, this doesn't come up. Wouldn't it be fair game? When you live in an era of champ and you've got the Cejudos, or you've got the Daniels, or you've got the St. Pierre that did it and did it successfully, it just creates a wrinkle. And while Khabib could have changed weights, whether it was 70 or it was 45, he would have been leaving the harder of the weights. If he would have gone to 70 or 45, as great as those guys are, the depth was not the same as where he stayed and ruled. I think that Khabib might be the greatest of all time. I think that he might be. I just think he's going to have a hard time winning the argument. I stand on St. Pierre. That's my answer. But I got a good reason for it. Not only did he clean out his division and beat all the guys of yesterday and beat all the guys of his day, he beat the future generations. Then he came back and did it again at a different weight class without losing a round. Hard argument. Hard argument. St. Pierre did not have 10-8 rounds. He didn't have as many of them as Khabib. But he beat those guys within the rules. He didn't lose rounds either. He didn't lose positions. He would come out of a fight, go to a nightclub, and he'd have to tell somebody they had a fight that night. Nobody would believe him. I mean, he looked perfect. He took no damage. Khabib gave a lot of damage. George took no damage. You an offensive guy, you a defensive guy, right? I mean, did you like Sugar Ray's offense, or do you appreciate the shoulder rolls of Floyd Mayweather? There's no wrong answer. The debate continues. I only submit for you, it's not between Khabib and John, and I'm not quite sure how we got there.